We have a real lead paint poisoning problem here in Maine, and that is why the legislature's Health and Human Services Committee voted unanimously to endorse a bill that would require lead testing for all Maine children. It would establish a universal blood test for kids 1 and 2.
Yeah, and again, Maine does have the oldest housing stock in the country. Lewiston is leading the charge right now in detecting this problem early all across the state. Cameron O'Brien talked to one organization on the front lines of this effort.
Community Concepts is on the ground level of the lead poisoning issue in Lewiston. They're also a driving force behind a bill that would require all Maine children to be tested for lead. CEO Sean Yardley says the endorsement from the Health and Human Services Committee is huge.
The idea of being able to identify children as early as we can that may have been exposed to lead gives us a chance to stop any further harm to those children.
Under current laws, any child under Maine care must undergo mandatory lead testing between the ages of 1 and 2. The proposed bill would require a universal blood test for every 1 and 2-year-old living in the state.
Lead doesn't know income. It is where it is, and people, if they don't know it's there, their children are being exposed.
So Community Concepts estimates that about 90% of the housing stock here in downtown Lewiston has been impacted by lead. But the problem is lead extends far beyond the paint in someone's house.
And what's happened up until now, the screening may be where do you live, but where you live doesn't necessarily mean where you frequent. If you go to grandma's house, if you go to a child care center, now hopefully the child care centers have been tested, but if it's a private home, how would you know?
Yardley says knowing that lead exposure is preventable makes seeing the effects in children all the more devastating.
It's tragic. It's tragic to see a small child that is not developing normally simply because they were exposed to this poison.
Yardley says the endorsement is a step in the right direction, but there's still more work to be done.
The next step in this process is to have the legislature endorse that will be raised through an additional fee on all paint sold in Maine. And I think the other piece is to help support doctors' offices to be able to do this efficiently and effectively.
In Lewiston, Cameron O'Brien, News Center, Maine.